All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to MasterClass. This is our first episode of 2025. Took a little break there since late last year, but I'm excited to be back as your host. I'm Trevor Burnett. And today, as the title says, we'll be covering smarter incentives through data, science, and design. And since we all know that our phones are listening to our everyday conversations, whether we want to or not, I've been getting ads for the other masterclass that's maybe a little more well known, and they have guests like NFL Super Bowl champion Steve Young and others like that. But we have just as exciting guests, in my opinion. So Casey Epley is going to be joining me today, and she is a product leader with over 15 years of experience in the incentives industry. And they're driving innovation in Maritz's incentives and engagement solutions. And she specializes in designing smarter incentive programs that motivate behavior and foster long-term partner loyalty. And she's passionate about helping companies think beyond the carrot and traditional transactional rewards. And Casey focuses on data and behavioral science, and she creates programs that deliver meaningful and measurable results with that. So I'll get Casey in here if I can click the right buttons there. There we go. Hey, welcome, Casey.
Thank you for having me. Do you love that quote, beyond the carrot? Isn't that
Yes.
such a fun little...
Do the air quotes.
Yeah.
Thank you for beyond the carrot. It's good because, at least the companies that I speak with, it seems to be an issue of kind of stuck with a traditional mindset, like you say in that intro, of just kind of doing the same old thing and not discovering or thinking about new and exciting ways, because we all change regularly in the marketplace as consumers. So it's important to stay up to date on what the latest things are that get people excited.
That's right. And some people, I think, are using their incentive programs more as a contractual lever, to say, like, fulfill these obligations and you get maybe better pricing discounts. But when we work with clients, and really what I want to talk about in this masterclass today is maybe like a better approach, thinking about, instead of just like the transaction, the dangling of the carrot, this is a contract between us, is how do we motivate behavior and change behavior over a longer term? And there's some kind of scientific techniques. There's some, proven techniques that we've been using for decades. So I've got some really cool examples and slides to share that I'd love to bring to your audience today.
Yeah, sounds great. Let's jump in.
Great. So we're going to go ahead and talk to you about smarter incentives here. So over the decades, Maritz has brought a number of business services to market, but most of them have to do with incentive and loyalty programs and helping those companies really motivate behaviors through these programs. And so we have put together in this slide some of our core best practices that center around how we help them create smarter programs. And that really sits at the intersection of these three things. It's the data, science, and design, because that's how you build smarter incentive and loyalty programs that are more impactful, more effective, more interesting to your partners. And it's at the intersection of these three. And for the masterclass today, I'd like to dive into each one. Like, there are volumes of information and maybe hours of conversation to be had in each of these three, but I've just pulled some of my favorite examples that I think that will resonate with the audience. And first, for data, while we can probably take many, many angles to discuss that, what I'm going to focus on for today is one specific type of data, which is key insights from a market study that we conducted, and how you might be able to conduct your own to get direct participant feedback and how to use it. And for science, we're talking about behavioral science. And I pulled together two of my favorite concepts that you can use to better understand human motivation and actually how to apply it in an incentive scenario. So not just on the academic lens, but what should I do with it inside my incentives? And then design, and we'll bring it all together. It's kind of the art of creating an engaging program. A lot gets packed into design here: communications, promotions you might run, the UX of your site. But today I'm focusing on the incentives and the rewards that might be able to move people along and create those long-term relationships. So that's kind of my 3-step process here for smarter incentive programs for the group today.
Very cool. Yeah, and it is called Masterclass, which usually means deep dive. Yeah. But we only have 30 minutes, so
I know.
I go through quickly.
I know. Yeah, so we'll just cover some of my favorite highlights, and maybe in future sessions be able to dive even deeper. But we'll get into the nitty gritty here in a sec.
Sounds great.
All right, so I'm excited to first bring you some findings from a market study we did just a few months back. We surveyed these program participants. So these are individuals who are enrolled in channel incentive programs. Most of them were in a selling function. Some of them were business owners, and they were enrolled in many, many programs. And so we produced 2 reports that Trevor and I decided we could put on the webinar landing page later on when we launched this for the group. So you'll be able to read the reports in depth. But I've just got a couple of my favorite stats to bring to you today, because there are dozens and dozens that you might be able to find value in. I pulled some key ones that are relative to our topics today. So we asked a lot of questions in our market study about what kinds of things these participants in these programs, what do they love about the best programs they participate in? What do they hate? What might define the worst program they're involved in? We asked them about engagement and disengagement. And we even asked them to think about designing their own perfect program. And so we put all that together, and I pulled out some couple of cool things that you might find interesting. First here, 95% reported that one of the most exciting elements of their incentive program is when they're getting close to a reward. So they're earning something, and then when they're getting a little bit closer to it, they said, that's the moment that I get really pumped up and I get really excited and engaged and I'm more switched on, close to the reward. That's key for later. Then we found that 69% of people said that a personalized reporting on a progress tracker is critical to their involvement in a program. So if you're not telling me as a human, as a person, like where I am in the tracking my progress, then I'm more likely to be uninterested to participate further. And we also asked a ton of questions around disengagement. So we wanted to uncover, like, what are those most common reasons that partners check out? They just say, I'm not paying attention to this program. I'm switching to a different brand, or, I'm just going to stop logging in and really, selling for them. So here are the 4 most common ones that we found. There are many others, but here's the 4 most common. 38% said they disengaged because the rewards themselves weren't appealing. 38% also said that the communications weren't relevant. So they may be getting spammed with too many emails or even texts and offers that weren't applicable to them as a partner. 31% disengaged because the rules were confusing. So if I don't even know how to play, I'm not going to win. And then 39% that the rewards were just too hard to earn. And so they thought, why even try? I'm never going to be able to achieve that. So, and for our listeners out there, I'm wondering, like, if there have been some disengagement issues in programs, these might be some of the reasons why. If we've been kind of confused about why our partners are disengaging, this might be some of the culprits there. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, they all make sense to me if I was responding myself to this survey, right? I always think about that 95% really stood out to me of, wow, how common it is that as we get close to reward, how excited we feel. It seems so silly that, oh, I'm 1 flight away from getting to gold status. Oh, why does that excite me so much? It's so silly, but it works. It's very effective, obviously, at 95%.
It's a psychological factor that is just true for most humans. And I don't know if there's like some actual answers to your question. That's probably a bit of like a dopamine and those kind of things that happen in our brain that have to do with gamification and the elements of psychology and motivation. But in general, all that matters is, yes, it's exciting to continue to earn awards, and the closer you get to the thing that you've been working towards, the more happy you are. And ultimately, aren't we just all trying to make our participants happy so that they're loyal and engaged and excited to participate and choose us and become really strong partners over time? So
that's true.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, and so we did learn like so many things from this study. It was hard to decide what to pull out, but I did do a quick little like recap, a summary, if you will, of the top 4 things that partners love and the top 3 that they don't. And just to do a quick rundown as a recap, they love the value of the rewards being appropriate to the level of effort that they put out, and the variety. So the variety could come in forms of something that's personal to me. I get to choose what the reward is, or maybe it's just something novel that happens over a promotional period. You might introduce something exciting that's new and different. This second one was really interesting because we heard people in incentive programs love for those programs themselves to help them upskill and develop new knowledge. And so when we think about incentive programs, we don't necessarily immediately think about training and learning and skilling, but these partners and these respondents in the survey did. And so we've been kind of touting that a lot to people who are asking us how to improve their programs. And this is a key part for improvement. Then some probably easy ones to think about is make participation easy for the partners. The rules should be clear, should be user-friendly to just, get active. And then the communications need to be effective and easy to track progress. And on the opposite side, the things are true when partners said, here's the elements of programs that I would deem the worst programs I participated in. They said, here are the characteristics. The rewards were too hard to earn. They took too long. They weren't appealing. The rules are confusing. And the communications, the offers just weren't relevant. And so if you're thinking about ways to elevate your program, we want all incentive programs that we touch and that we work with our clients to be top rated. We want them to lean more on the side of love than hate. So we want to help them maximize these elements in the love and fix the things that might be broken in the don't column.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always think of the story of the lady that was trying to swim the English Channel, and it was on a foggy day, and so she ended up just giving up and jumping back into the boat, and it turns out she was insanely close to the shore, but couldn't see the end, so couldn't see the finish line essentially. And without having that goal present or visible or clearly communicated, it was difficult to finish. So it's kind of like the psychology of it all, right? We need to have that clear communication, the clear rules, know what it takes so people don't give up.
That is a pretty pure example that I might steal for some of my next presentations, Trevor, because it really aligns perfectly with this concept that I'm going to introduce around behavior science. Because we think a lot about incentive design and how we can use these tips and techniques to improve programs to impact behavior for the long run, and not just use them as a lever in the contracts, as I mentioned at kind of the opening. So that's why we look to behavior science to think about why humans are motivated by certain elements and how we can get them to be more motivated by activating some of those behind the scenes brain elements. And the two ones that I really personally love, a little peek behind the curtain at my nerdy side, but are goal gradient effect and endowed progress. And I've taken these two and made them less academic. And I'm going to show you two examples of how to apply them in incentive programs specifically. So we'll teach you a little bit about what this principle of behavior science does and what's about, and then how to use it. So my example was the marathon running example, which is very similar to yours, Trevor, about the swimming the English Channel. But first up, in terms of goal gradient theory, we often use this marathon example because there's this 4-hour mark, which is a popular benchmark for runners. Lots of them cluster up at this 4-hour mark. And you see a big push at that peak there. And these runners, they actually speed up their pace. And so while they might start at a certain pace, they might outpace themselves in that last stretch because they know if they just push a little bit harder, they'll be able to reach their 4-hour goal, which is one of the, pat yourself on the back, one of those great achievements that a marathon runner might be able to have. So in general, the goal gradient theory here says that as people approach the goal, their efforts actually accelerate. So the proximity to your goal, the sight line on the shore, the finish line at a race, your proximity to that tier is the motivator that's magnetic that pulls you through. And so when we're thinking about incentive programs, often what we want to do here is think about setting tiers. That's kind of a baseline concept, a program element in programs, is creating goals in the form of tiers achievements. And it's not just about setting a goal out there and saying like, great, if you achieve silver, good luck, or gold here. Here's how many things you need to sell to achieve gold. But to frame those goals and those tiers in a way that accelerates the motivation, and there are two kind of techniques to do that. The first one would be showing a visual, which is pretty simple, but it's pretty powerful in of itself. It shows them where they are in their progress. So this visual here, the black bar that's pulling around, is their current progress, and that red tick mark is last year. And this is cool because sometimes people are only just competing against themselves. They're not like in a leaderboard or in a direct competition with another business, but they might be competing against their best from the previous year. And this is a way to help them visualize where they're at. And if you think about the Apple Fitness app, that's a really another great example. The visual design of those rings, so simple yet so effective.
Gotta close those rings. Gotta do it.
Yep, gotta close them. Another technique, so just visualization is one technique, and another technique is around copywriting, which is very tactical that you guys can pick up actually right now. And by framing the progress of the goal in terms of both to date and to go, you can encourage participants to visualize their closeness to that completion. And so to date would be like what they've accomplished so far. So the examples like starting strong, you're already 30% to target. And saying on the flip side, once they've kind of reached that 50% threshold, to switch the language, to frame it differently and say, all right, this is all you got, what's left. One last push, only 10% left to go. And these are really great techniques that can be triggered and personalized out of your incentive platform or partner portal. So that personalization element and just the simple copy language can make people feel attracted or magnetic to the goals that they have in front of them.
Yeah, it's like having that personal trainer there to just keep you motivated and keep you going.
Yep. And it would be really demotivating to say, oh, you only have 99% left to go. So we would flip that frame and say, you've got a great start, but keep moving to get your goal on time.
Yes.
Tiers are really common here. I have two examples of tiers. Actually, just one. I killed one from the presentation. I have one example of a tier that is that we changed related to stretch goals. So I know people love graphs and charts and show me what happened. And not every program will have the same kind of results if you change your tier structure in your program. We can't guarantee this, but this was a really interesting one for us. So in this particular program was incentivizing sales reps in a channel incentive program. And we often saw a concentration of these reps in terms of the dollar amount that they sold right at the tier level, the bronze, silver, or gold tier level. So you can see the spikes and the peaks and all of these mountains here. These are the number of reps that are selling that amount of dollars. And so the program decided they wanted to produce some incremental results out of this program. So they made the tiers a little bit richer. And so when a partner achieved a bronze, silver, or gold, they actually earned a little bit more. But what they did was they increased the actual threshold by about 20%. And it turns out that those reps could have all along pushed a little bit further and sold above and beyond the current tier. But because they didn't have that stretch goal in place, they reverted back to their defaults or their old habits, or just meeting the threshold and moving on. So by moving the tier ever so slightly, the sales actually increased in the same amount. So this was a pretty powerful results for the company who did this. As you can see, in between all of those little thresholds is something like $150 million in terms of additional revenue for this client. And they were very pleased with their new rule structure from year 1 to year 2.
Yeah, how interesting that it peaks right at the goal, wouldn't you know?
Imagine that. So you can't just change the goalpost on someone. That might be a little demotivating, but this particular program, they enriched the prize. So that was actually motivating. So pairing that with really good communication and maybe some grandfathering in for year 1 and saying, we're really focused on achievement for year 2. There's some techniques in there if you're looking to push and stretch your reps. There's some ideas there. Don't just do it, set it and forget it. You need to consider the elements around it.
Yeah, and I kind of look at this and go, okay, gold obviously has the right motivated people and everything. And is it that bronze and silver may not have as good of incentives, or maybe that's just where lower performing reps naturally fit, and that's why they're not quite achieving the same numbers? So
it might have to do with their tenure in the program, the book of business that they've grown. So there are some factors that say, so the goal is to move people from bronze to silver to gold. And there were a lot of tier move ups in this program, and some what we call maintains as well, the people who achieve gold, who keep gold. And so I think having that as a feature KPI that they measure on a quarterly basis has helped them decide what lever should I pull to help these bronze folks get to silver, or incentivize them to do that, or even enable them to do that. So
interesting.
Great points. Okay, so this is around the goal gradient effect. Really cool second one, and I'll just do this briefly, is called endowed progress effect. So going back to behavior science, this is the next one. Giving people a perceived head start gives them some skin in the game and is a powerful like stepping stone. And so the way you can activate this, if you think about, this is a kind of an old school reference, but the punch cards that you would get at a coffee shop or something, and say that they handed you your first punch card that already had 2 punches in it. And so you already felt like you were, 20% of the way to your next coffee, but they knew that, they did that intentionally to give you a little bit of an endowed progress effect. So in our brains, we say, hey, I'm already playing. I might as well finish the game. And there's some interesting techniques that you can do for enrollment bonus points. So the moment that people get excited and onboarded is a really high engagement time for them. And so giving them, and it does seem like the tiers or the goalpost is quite far away on day one. So giving them a little bit of a push, a tiny bonus point or something could really work for them. Or maybe you surprise them with a recognition for their first sale, for example, like, oh, you've done it, this is just the beginning, things like that.
There is a lot of psychology involved with this. I'm figuring that out right now.
That's right. I love the underlaying of psychology in all that we do, really, like all of marketing, sales techniques, even product design, everything kind of comes back to the human beings that are interacting with the program and how we can make it slicker and easier and motivating and engaging for them. And understanding this behavior science and psychology is one way to get there.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
So we've got just a few minutes left, and I'm going to jump to our third pillar. So data science and design. And when I say design, I'm thinking about the art of creating those engaging programs. It might be communication techniques, it might be UX, but I focused here on reward types. And this is one of my favorite areas of discussion and exploration. And I'm hoping you guys find this as interesting as I have. So we're introducing this concept to you. Hopefully you find it helpful. Is a framework essentially for 5 categories of different kinds of rewards that you might think about in an incentive program to kind of broaden your definitions. So we might typically be thinking about monetary rewards. Maybe it's MDF funds or just paying out cash or rebates. And those things are really kind of foundational to incentive programs, but it's not the only way to think about what reward, what goal is at the end of the rainbow. And so if you can activate multiple reward types in an incentive program, you're probably going to have a more engaging and exciting experience for the people participating. So we've introduced these 5 types, and I'll just walk you through each one real quick so you can get a sense of what it is and give you some tips for how to use them. So each one is really designed to tackle a different goal. And so it does depend on if you're trying to drive short-term quarterly sales objectives versus you've got long-term loyalty aspirations. You might be activating and pulling these levers at different times. So first here, monetary. This is probably the most self-explanatory, but it's really great for driving immediate action and being tied to sales transactions. But it is typically less of an emotional reward, less of a loyalty impact, as you can imagine.
It seems like that's the most common one that people deploy, right?
Yeah. It is the most common. And it's almost the most expected, especially when you're in competitive programs and, the partner can be enrolled in one versus the other. If someone has monetary incentives, the other one might need to in order to kind of stay at market parity. But there's other ways to think about spending a little bit less money or of your budget to activate these other reward types and get more bang for your buck potentially. Symbolic rewards is interesting because this taps into the deep-seated emotion of like pride and competition. And so this might be getting people into the Champions Club or having people earn a certification or a public recognition. Then you would have access-based incentives. And so again, this is earning your way into something, but earning your way into a special opportunity or a special privilege that really maybe is more scarce and is not something everyone has access to. It has a lot of high business impact. So you could consider having some of your products be exclusive, like you have to earn your way into being able to sell these. You could have people earn their way into sitting on your advisory boards or getting special training or other perks. We love tangible rewards. There's a lot of psychology when it comes to this as well, but this is something that's visible. It's personal to me. It's probably something that sits on my desk or at my house, and it helps when the individual who's earning the reward has choice to be able to choose what types of rewards they find meaningful to them. And lastly is experiential. And this has quite a long lasting and emotional impact, a strong connection to loyalty. This would be things around incentive trips, brand events that you host, local adventures, and things like that. Excuse me. So
how dare you have a cold?
Yes, how dare I have a cough and cold? Yeah, during this beautiful spring season.
Right. Yeah, the tangible rewards, they were interesting to me. I got a little bobblehead sent to me, and it's still here on my desk. So, you know, it is funny how each one of these things, I can definitely see the value of each one in a different way. And like you said, I can see how they can be just as motivating in different ways, but not as cost heavy like the first one.
Right.
That's very cool.
If we've got some folks that are on the line live right now, I would love to see if we could get a quick poll going. In fact, my question for you all you have to do is scan the QR code from your phone. You don't have to enter a code or anything, but if you scan the QR code, you'll be brought right to this poll. I'd love to find out from you all what types of rewards you have in programs that you run today, to see if you've got just one active or you've got multiple. Obviously, it's a multiple choice question, so you can pick one. So scan the QR code and let us know.
All right. So while we're waiting for a few of those responses to roll in, oh yeah, that's very live. That's pretty cool. Just wanted to go through one of the questions that popped up. So yeah, if anybody that is joining us live, that's the benefit of joining us live, is you get to be interactive. And we do have one question that popped in here while we're waiting on those results. So what are some of the early warning signs that an incentive program might be causing disengagement rather than motivation?
Oh, okay. Interesting. So I would think that some early warning signs for that might be participation drop off right after onboarding. There's this classic engagement cliff. So people get excited during the onboarding timeframe and then don't know what to do, or find that it might be too hard to reach their goal that they want. So dropping off right after onboarding or early milestones could be a sign. You might have some negative sentiment feedback loops. It really is a matter of what kind of metrics we want to measure for engagement, whether that's logins or signing up for the promotions or accepting terms and conditions. There's all kinds of things that we can decide, like these are engagement metrics. And if you're seeing any one of those drop from the norm, that might be a sign that you're having disengagement.
Interesting. Well, no love for experiential so
That's
far.
Okay.
Seems like it's kind of a newer...
for that one. And if you've ever been on an incentive trip, you know just how powerful that an experiential reward can be for brand loyalty.
Yeah, I was trying to think if I've ever experienced anything like. I mean, I guess I've gotten free flights with points and something like that, or a President's Club, but that's more involved with the company and not so much a rewards program. But yes, definitely could be motivating if somebody wants to say, "Oh, I got sent on a trip by winning a radio show. How fun was that?"
That is awesome.
That was my first trip to New York. It was from Diddy, so it got a little tainted there, I guess, recently.
Oh my gosh!
I didn't go to any parties, but it was great. I got to go to New York off of how old am I that I won off of a radio show? But
I never won
like a dinosaur talking like
You're
that.
Lucky.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. So no love for the experience. We had a different response, or decent response, and as I predicted, it looks like monetary is pretty much the popular one there. Interesting. And Jane had a follow-up here. So now I see from the results, it looks like it'd be experiential. Yeah, looks like that's the one that we should be doing.
Oh, right.
Because I missed it, because the previous question was, which of the 5 reward types would you say is the most underutilized?
Underutilized experiential, it seems. Yeah.
I
think symbolic is typically one that people don't think about in an incentive program. It almost feels like more of like an employee recognition element. But if you can do public shout outs and get people access to like the special clubs and tiers, and you think about the Green Masters jacket, we just had the Masters this month. So things like that are symbolic are quite low cost that have really high impact on the recipient. So that's one to consider.
Yeah. All right, we got time for one last question here. If I can pull it in. There we go. All right, so how can partner program leaders use the goal gradient effect that you showed earlier on there without making incentives feel overly gamified?
Oh, overly gamified. Yep. So we don't want it to feel like a gimmick, right? We don't want it to feel like you're playing just for the sake of playing.
Hmm.
And so the key there is to leverage like the momentum of the motivation without turning it into a gimmick. So I think if we can make it visible, partners feel connected to their own personal progress. And so as long as it feels like it's meaningful to that individual, it won't feel like a trick or a gimmick or overly gamified, because they're seeking out their own personal progress to say, where am I at in terms of my tier achievement or my reward achievement, whatever they're working towards. So if it's tied to something personal, that's one way. And the other way is to make sure that it's not just points for the sake of points, or transactions for the sake of that. Like if it's framed in a more purposeful way, like the more you sell, the more you are engaged in this partner program, the better helper to your customers you will be, or the more knowledgeable you will be when some customers come with new pain points, and you can help solve them with the solutions that we sell, that we co-sell together. So if you can tie the incentive program to a purpose, something that's personally meaningful to them maybe as a rep, but also for business success, that might help it feel like not overly gamified or gimmicky.
All right. Well, it looks like we have some final takeaways and to leave everybody with.
Yeah, just the final thoughts here as a quick wrap up of 5 things you can do right now. Consider conducting your own partner survey to uncover what's meaningful to them. As we saw, the results can really help you and figure out where to focus and what you're doing well. You also might consider looking at your program distribution and reworking your tiers. And if you've got some incremental revenue goals for the year, as most companies do, shifting your tiers to a stretch goal for those partners while also enriching and helping them get there could be beneficial. And consider these other non-monetary rewards. Not everything has to be a huge investment. You don't have to rip cash out of people's hands, certainly, but think about experiential, symbolic, and some of those other reward types to add diversity and interest and engagement to your incentive program. Those are my tips and takeaways for today.
Yeah, I like the third one because it seems to be the theme that budgets are a bit tight. We got some economical issues affecting us. So yeah, if we can make some good outcomes without breaking the bank or having to get more budget, I think that's a great move. Well, Casey, thank you so much. We are up on our time, but really appreciate you coming and sharing your expertise. I learned a ton. Hopefully everybody that joined us live or is watching this recording had the same experience. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. This was great. Appreciate it. Till next time.
Okay. See ya.
Bye-bye.